we might have heard of something called as COVID-19. It has changed the sport tangibly. I mean, the essence of sport, in my opinion, was the reaction of a live crowd to any action that the sports person does, be it football, be it NBA, be it cricket. The reaction of the people who, when Karen Pollard hits a six, or when Sachin hits a straight drive, the gasps, the oohs and ahs that the crowd reacts with is what gives me those goosebumps, that romantic feeling with the sport. That has all vanished. It has all been replaced by fake noise that is being pumped in all sports, which is not my cup of tea. Let's put it that way. How has your viewing experience changed of today's sport, and has your way of working had to take an alteration? Because you earlier were more often than not, you would have been in the live crowd, in the press box, at the venue, and now you have to sit in your sofa, consume the game just like everyone else.
I don't have that crowd thing that you have. That doesn't mean I haven't been in some incredible crowds that have done some incredible things. So Mitchell Starc in 2015 World Cup is certainly one that I remember off the top of my head. It's been a couple of times I've written about Edgbaston because their crowd is unlike anything else in the UK. The Indian crowd when they 2016 in Nagpur when they lost to New Zealand in that first game. You know, there are certain times when the crowd just is the story. But I'm not like you. For me, the crowd going up when the goal goes in is I almost don't notice it because I noticed the goal or I noticed the shot. When COVID happened, when it started, it was quite funny. I was quite in demand for a little while because I write about sports when it doesn't matter if sports is going on always. Does that make sense? So
you're not an update person. You're a story person.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter to me as much that the sport is going on because there's always going to be narratives coming up. I might not have what I might have missed out on was continually adding to my storyboards, if you know what I mean. Like when there was no sport, it was harder for me to find more and more stories. But, you know, I write about cricket at the ground because that pays the bills and because twice a test. But if you could say to me, twice a test, you could write about it, I would write much better at the ground. And then, you know, if I have to write 4 or 5 times. In fact, when I started with Cricinfo, it was almost perfect because that's what they wanted. They wanted 2 or 3 pieces. And then, unfortunately, all you buggers started reading them. And Cricinfo was like, oh, maybe we should get him right every day. But when I first started, yeah, even towards the end of Cricinfo, I could usually skip a day here and there and just say, look, it's not worth it for me today, which George, you know, well, not George, but most cricket writers, you know, John Etheridge and Peter Lawler and those guys, they can't skip a day. They're there to write about it. So I suppose in that way, it didn't change that much. I think that what I've done is probably just fallen back on the story stuff. If I'm not at the ground, I'd rather look at one big angle or one big narrative arc rather than you'd have to go back and check, but I would have assumed this summer I didn't write a lot on innings or spells because I wasn't there. I couldn't see where the field was. I can get an idea of what the pitch is doing, but not quite the same as you can if you're at the ground. You know, little things like that. I don't know what the overhead conditions were. I don't know if it was hot or cold. Or if someone on the commentary says, "Oh, it's hot," well, I can't feel that. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But what's hot? Is that 25 degrees? Is that 45 degrees? All those sorts of things. So you'd have to go back and have a look at what I wrote this summer. But I'm assuming I know I wrote about what an all-rounder is. The whole Holder and Stokes thing was quite interesting. I wrote about Stokes' captaincy a little bit, but I probably wrote about it in a more I wrote about a couple of key things that he did, but it was more a sort of overarching thing of the way that he would go about captaining based on the way that he plays his cricket in general. And there are certain sports, basketball, you can probably do it. You don't necessarily need to be there to write those sorts of pieces. Most basketball writers, if they're at the courts, it's to get the stories that aren't publicly accessible. Does that make sense? Which is why I like going to grounds. Being able to chat in the press box with some former player about something nonsensical, which leads you on to something else, which you don't get on when you're watching it at home. But yeah, I'm not. So I suppose it changed my writing a little bit there, but that's almost falling back on a sort of writing that I already do. It's just taking away the need. And also, I wasn't paid to write day in, day out. So when I wrote something this summer, it was my emailer, and it was because I wanted to write. There's a big difference between that and doing it as a job. So yeah, there were little changes from COVID. If I'd been at the grounds, I would have had a job to write every day for a publication, and that would have been completely different. And it would have ended up differently. So I, because of that, I've sort of done that. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's changed anything. It's just made me go back to things, to certain styles over other styles.
You enjoy the sport in the bubble as we have right now?
Well, I don't think there should be sport in the bubble. I don't think in America and the UK they should have been playing sports at all with the death rates they have. Yeah. I'm not sure so many people should be traveling around the world to play in the IPL either, even Absolutely. If Dubai is a safer place. I think that if one person has died from all this, I'm just not sure really what the point of that is. That said, it's sport, and if it's in front of me, I'll watch it. Like, you know. There's no point protesting that, because sports are going to be sports. They're going to play. They have to make their money. I remember talking to someone from ESPN about the NFL and like saying, you know, how's ESPN going to go with all the, you know, and this guy was like, wow, as long as the NFL plays, ESPN will be fine. And the NFL don't care about their own players. So why would they care about COVID? And yeah, as we can see from the many players who've been caught with COVID as they travel around the country rather than doing it in a secure place, that person was right. Yeah, look, it's a conflicting time. I remember, I think I wrote a piece when cricket came back, when Test cricket came back. And I said, look, it's okay to feel conflicted about this. It's okay to go, oh my God, thankfully there's some cricket. And also go, should we be
I'm not sure about this, yeah.
Yeah, I think those two things are perfectly fine. You know, those are the sorts of things that upset people, but there is no clear-cut answer to these sorts of things, because we did want, you know, the first 2 episodes of the dive I did for TalkSport about that thing that we never understood, which was none of us had ever had sport taken from our life before, right? Suddenly we're in this situation where none of us had sport, and it does make you think other things. And it is quite interesting to see how people have handled it and how people haven't handled it. And it's not just sport, is it? It's, oh, I want my pubs open. Oh, I want the movie theaters open. Oh, it's just, you know, people felt a bit lost, and some people managed to deal with it and some people didn't. And that's completely fair. I mean, I had a baby during lockdown, so I was too busy to fucking notice.